What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo at the bench, and today I have a cutter carry knife review. Today looking at the Benchmade Mini-Griptilian. So this is one that I've wanted to try for a long time. I finally got the chance, and I am glad that I did. So this was my first Axis lock. This is my first Benchmade that I've ever owned. I know I've posted videos prior to this one. However, this was the first one that I got. I've just been sitting on it for a while. So this is my first impression with Benchmade and my first impression with the Axis lock, so I'm excited to talk about it. All right, so let's do the size comparison, weight check, and measurements real quick. This is a fairly lightweight knife. This is a fairly small knife, so under 3 ounces. Wow, when I hit the table, it just dropped 0.1 ounce. So 2.7 ounces. Let's do some measurements, and you'll see this is a fairly small knife. So in terms of sharpened blade length, you're still getting, look at that, almost 3 inches, which is really good. And then in the pocket length, you're looking at 3.88, so almost 4 inches. It's a little bit thicker knife, so 0.5 inches and, yeah, let's just say 0.5 inches. And then we'll do size comparisons. So what do we want to look at today? Let's do your Spyderco Chaparral, which is, man, still, I forgot to clean this. I did a review recently with this, and it was all messed up, and I forgot to clean it. So Spyderco Chaparral, you're in that same ballpark. The Kaiser Mini Sheepdog, and what else? What else? Let's do the, well, while it's still in the collection before it goes out, let's do the Cricket Pilar. All right, so you can see it's kind of in that smaller range, but good size. Like, I think if it compares nicely with the FRN Chaparral, that's kind of a good baseline for saying it is a usable size, but tends towards being a little bit small, but not as small as something like the Cat or the Pilar or something like that. So hopefully that helps. All right, so things that I like about this knife. So first and foremost, the Axis lock. I mean, this goes without saying, I am very late to the party here, but the Axis lock is super, super cool. It is at its core just this kind of lock bar here that you're releasing, which is really cool, and really nothing super special about that. But what's special about it is the drop shuttiness. I mean, in a lot of ways, obviously, and most people will have already drawn this comparison, but it is very similar to the action that you get with a compression lock here, because you can drop it shut with your hand out of the way. Number one, it's very fidgety, but more importantly, it's very useful. So I can also release this like this and swing the knife open, drop it shut, and all of the while my hand is out of the way. Honestly, this is the reason that the Benchmade 580 Barrage made me so mad, because when you add spring assist to this, it really takes away every single advantage to the Axis lock, and I absolutely love the Axis lock like this. So that is first and foremost the thing that I love about this knife. Second thing, the scales. I actually really love this. I'm not sure exactly what material this is called. I know that on the 580 they call it, that is, I think, a different material, Valox or something like that. This is very nice. I mean, there's nothing super fancy about it. I know a lot of people really can't stand the Benchmade scales on the Mini-Griptilian, but I actually really like it. I think that it's reminiscent of the FRN that Spyderco uses, but it's got a little bit of the plasticky feel. It doesn't feel super cheap, but I think the texturing is probably the thing that I like the most about it. This knife is spot on, in my opinion, in terms of the texturing added. So you have not only this texture right here, which is, I think, exactly where you want it. If you had this texturing continue all the way up here, you're going to be hitting on that every time you go to pull at that Axis lock, which I think would be really annoying. I don't think it would feel all that great, and so I think that that's a really cool thing that they've kind of smoothed it out near here, because that's what your hand's going to be. But practically speaking, when you're holding the knife, your fingers are coming around onto this texturing. So it's very well thought out in that regard, and I really like that. Additionally, The pocket clip comes down here, and not that you would really have an issue if it came down on this texturing, because I think just the nature of this, and it's not super aggressive, but you're coming down right at the end, right at the tail of that texturing, and so you're going to be pushing against in the pocket on this smooth surface, which is, you know, really, really nice. You know, it kind of carrying forward the whole jimping or texturing or contouring of the handles, I think that they've added the perfect amount of texture and jimping to the knife in a couple different places. So number one, up here. So with this blade shape here, you have this slight ramp to the thumb stud. And you have texture not only here on the knife itself, but carried down here to the handles, and not only on the handles, but also on those liners in there, which is really, really nice. So it's just this very smooth operation that continues across all of these different materials. You have 1, 2, 3, and I'm really, I know it's the third, but 4 almost on the back right there. And so that is, you know, all interrupted. It feels very smooth. You can't really tell with your hand, you know, the difference in the materials. It's very continuous, I guess. Additionally, you have some texturing back here that fits very nicely in the back of your palm, and then you have a little bit coming forward and a little bit under here. I think right up under the knife, right where your forefinger is, it's just the perfect amount. It's not so much that it's distracting to the knife, it's not uncomfortable, but it's the perfect amount to get good purchase on the knife, and that's a great thing. I mean, I've been probably first most impressed with the axis lock, and second, just with the overall ergonomics and the fact that I can feel the texturing, but it's not uncomfortable. I think that that's a really, really good thing. Other things that I like about the knife, the pocket clip is totally fine. It's functional, it's serviceable. It's not sexy by any means, but it does its job, which is really all you need out of a pocket clip. Has a good bit of space here, you know, for thicker pants or whatnot. Good ramp, good spring tension. Overall, it's worked very, very well. I have never had it slip out of the pocket at all. It's always gone in and out very easily, so no issues there. Other things that I like about the knife, so the blade is interesting. Typically this is not my style of blade, but I think on a smaller knife like this, I actually kind of like it. So you have a nice swedge up here. You have some good sharpened blade length here. I usually tend to like, you know, more of a belly on my blades, but on a smaller knife like this, I can kind of forgive that. I think that it is usable, not maybe as functional as it could be, but, you know, I really like that. And so that's good. The thumb stud here, I like the thumb stud itself. I'll say something about the action in just a minute. But the thumb stud, I think, is utilitarian, and it's nicely done. So you have kind of concentric circles coming out that give you some nice texture. Nothing too fancy, but I think that it looks fine, and it works, you know, very well for deploying the knife. Other things that I like. I like the color options that you get in these knives. I like, let's see. I like just the overall smoothness. I think that's the thing I'll end with. I know I started with the axis lock, but just in general, the knife is very smooth, smooth to open, smooth to close. Just feels good. It's fun to open and close. I really like it. This is the second Mini-Griptilian. When I got this one, I got my wife one in pink that was in her stocking. And, but, you know, kind of played with both of them. I sharpened both of them up. And, you know, the quality controls seem pretty good. They seem fairly similar between both. And the action was really good, really enjoyable, you know, kind of both. So that's definitely a good sign, because that's definitely not the case with other knives where I've bought multiples. Okay, so let's go to some things I don't like about the Mini-Grip. So first minor nitpick, this, you know, I get it. You know, you want to allow the pocket clip to be reversible. Having this little raised section is a little bit wonky to me. I understand that there's contouring here and you can't just, I get the need for it. It still looks dumb to me. I hate that it's there, but not a big deal at all. Speaking of the pocket clip, this has the same issue as the Delica, and this one is an old clip, so you're not going to see the issue quite as much, but you see what I'm talking about, right? You have a polished knife, and you have a black pocket clip. and on the Delica you have a black pocket clip and you have polished screws and everything, which is even worse. But on this one, it's just a weird mix, and I know it's a really dumb thing. I know that it's a cost-saving thing and like whatever, but it's really dumb. I mean, a nice polished clip would have looked really nice on that. I don't like that aesthetic. I'm mixing the colors there, but that's just a personal preference. Other things that I don't like, this little hump here is a little wonky for the thumb stud. I understand why they did it, and I guess I'm glad that they did it, but it does make it very distinctive, but it's a little bit weird. Other things that I am not a huge fan of, let's see. That might be it besides my one final thing. Let me just double check. Okay, so two final things. So number one, two final things. That'll round out the things that I don't like. Number one, the action is very, very good on the drop shut. However, it is I don't know. The thumb stud does not deploy quite as snappy as I would like it to. I do have to kind of think about it to kind of push a little more forcefully than I would like. Can kind of play with the pivot a little bit, and that helps to some degree. But I noticed this with both my wife's and mine, that the action is just not quite as good as I would like on a thumb stud, especially a thumb stud so small. And so, that's one thing. It's been more of a minor annoyance than anything. It is not unreliable. I haven't really had any issues like that, where I'm not deploying the knife. But just overall, it's something I have to think of. It feels like it's not going to always lock up, but, so far it's been okay. So that leaves me with really one major issue with this knife, and it's not really with this knife. I mean, yes, it's with this knife, but it's really my issue, and that is I have fairly large hands, and this knife is just way too small for my hands. When I grab this knife, I feel like I'm just choking way back on it. I feel like I'm about to drop it out of my hands a little bit. I think the ergonomics are actually excellent for the size knife that it is, but it's just way too small for me. When I look at something like the Kaiser Mini Sheepdog, which is a new addition, for whatever reason, this is about the same handle size, but it just feels a lot better in my hands. I feel more of a grip on it than the Benchmade here. So that's just going to be a personal thing. I mean, you have smaller hands, or it happens to fit you a little bit better, no problem. But I think with this really aggressive front hump right here, your hand is really just forced back. You can't choke up at all, at least safely. You can't. I guess you technically could. But to me, it feels like it's just too small. So it makes me want to check out the Griptilian, but the Mini Grip just isn't really doing it for me in terms of the size. All right, so cut or carry. So I like this knife a lot. I was more impressed with it than I thought I would be. To be honest, Benchmade has kind of made a bad name for itself in my head, and I'm trying to right that wrong. And so I hope to own some more Benchmades. This one is going to be a cut for me because it's just too small. It doesn't really fit my hands, doesn't serve a practical purpose for me. I have some smaller knives that I like the ergonomics better. I think it is an absolutely fantastic choice for some people. So far, my wife seems to like hers. I can't really tell if it's just oh, this is great, thank you so much, and kind of stick it in her drawer and never use it. She seems to like it. I've seen her use it several times. She says that she likes it. She's figured out the axis lock, which I think she actually really likes because she hates frame locks and that kind of thing. So I think that she's really going to like it. I think that if it fits your hands, this may be an excellent choice for you. Unfortunately, it's just not for me. However, this is the knife, I think, that saved Benchmade for me. So like this is, after a couple that I did not like, this is one that makes me want to check out some other offerings. So hopefully there are more in the future. Hope you have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.